I'm Naomi Hermans, and my involvement with Croc was to be one of the game artists, and I've had the amazing opportunity to be on the team to bring back and revisit this cultural icon from 1997. When I started, I looked into it further, of course, being starting to work on it and be a bit more um, included in the culture. I found out more about 3D platformers from the late 90s and early 90s, and the fact that Croc was pretty much the first 3D platformer of its time is incredible. It is so amazing. Yeah, well, back in the 90s, we didn't really have the technology or the means to support a lot of polygons and make a rounded surface. So back then you really had to make do with what you were given, and that was not very much. In modern times, technology has advanced rapidly, and we're now able to support more of an art feel that is more aligned with the original creative direction that the team wanted, which is really great to be able to put into life. As an artist, while helping to develop the direction for Croc's meshes, particularly the characters and how they look when they've been up-resed, I think I most enjoyed my part to play in experimenting with these incredible sliders that the developers and engineers had put so much time and effort into, and now I can just mess with it and just push the limits of how smooth I want the character to look, or how polygonal I want it to be as it originally was, or maybe a mixture of both. Right now, looking at a lot of 3D platformers these days in modern times, stylized 3D works, like the general Nintendo ones like Mario or Kirby and things, they do have a kind of they do have like a mix of soft and harder edges. Never fully hard, because a completely hard angled surface, a corner like that, doesn't exist in the real world. So we don't want to get too close to something unreal. Having beveled edges, or leaning towards bringing back some of the original polygonal aspects that make for a unique kind of proportioned mesh, especially around the snout, I found was very important to have that iconic look of Croc, especially when we're coming from the more isometric-ish view that you get from above. The Gobbos were very, very different. At the time, in the original game, they were a single polygonal plane, just a little plane with a circular kind of texture, a paint chip really these days. It was tiny. I think I'm not sure how many pixels wide it was. It was something like less than 60 by 60, and it's incredible the amount of detail that you can get out of that, or just the impression that you can get from such a small texture. But yes, now we've had to change that up, and I actually hand painted the Gobbo's texture, and we didn't AI up-res that because I felt, and Jason felt, that it was so iconic, and the up-resing models that we found online or we were licensing weren't adequate to be able to produce the amount of detail or the mind's impression of fur that you would get from that tiny Gobbo's texture. The amount that was packed in this game is incredible. We had a system where we were able to see every single mesh in the entire game in one scene, and it would fill up my screen. It was incredible just to see how much work had been put into every single asset, whether that's a little fireball that's coming out of the lava or one of the platforms. And there are a lot of different platforms and a different texture for every platform. And every platform has its own code and own environment that it has to be placed in. And then alongside that are all the characters, all the rest of the environmental meshes, and you have quite an in-depth game. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me to be able to work on something like this, bringing a retro game back into the modern visual hemisphere is something I'll never be able to do again. These things are limited, those retro games, and I think it's gonna be one of the highlights of my career as a video game artist to be able to work on this. When the old gamer starts to play this revisit to Croc, I think that, well, what we hope for is for a sense of nostalgia to be triggered and for the original game to feel the same, but the visuals to be closer to what the player may have thought it looked like or imagined it looked like after years and years of dreamlike nostalgia. And that's what we hope for. As a new gamer coming into this Croc remaster, they will likely realize that it is a remaster of an older game, just mainly due to making the comparison between what is currently on the market. When you have a remaster of Croc up against things like Baldur's Gate or Counter-Strike 2, the difference in game mechanics and the requirements from game developers are very different in these modern times. So I'm sure that new gamers coming to this Croc remaster would be able to tell the difference. However, there is a certain magic about Croc. The simplicity of just having a platformer where you're controlling this character and exploring the world and going through and finding this story and finding the puzzle pieces and unlocking all the little mysteries. There's a certain charm to that I think some games may have lost these days in becoming too complicated.